Anxiety manifests in a whole lot of different ways. You might find yourself just withdrawing and isolating from society as a whole, maybe not wanting to be as social even on the phone with people or even with the people in your household. Guilt is a really big one. Then ultimately, anger is a really big one because when we have trouble expressing our emotions, especially, very frequently they result in anger. Anger is something that we're all very familiar with. And so the more we suppress any sort of other emotions, they do tend to bubble up as anger ultimately, when we all know that feeling of just, enough things pile up and then there's the straw that breaks the camel's back and we explode in an angry fit. Cognitively, you might have trouble remembering things. You might have trouble concentrating, making decisions, finding yourself confused throughout the day. And one of the ways that it manifests a lot, especially with anxious feelings and then people who do experience anxiety regularly, you might find ruminating thoughts where your mind goes off on these catastrophic, horrible thoughts and it spirals, from one awful thought to the next awful thought until just everything becomes really terrible and dark and bleak. So physically, you could experience restlessness, fatigue, like I mentioned earlier, the feeling of being exhausted all the time, increased muscle aches and soreness, stomach aches, headaches are very common to anxiety. Gastrointestinal issues in general are very common to especially anxiety disorders. Worsening of any chronic health problems you might already have, you might find them worsened if you're in a state of anxiety. And then finally, behaviorally, you might experience differences in the way you act. Most notably, anxiety could cause sleep issues. You might have trouble sleeping, either falling asleep or staying asleep. Anxiety can also exacerbate the use of drugs and alcohol. If you happen to have issues with that to begin with, anxiety absolutely exacerbates those urges. Changes in eating patterns are very common when we're anxious. We all know the common, stress eating, or the opposite of that, where you lose your appetite entirely in times of worry and stress. And then crying spells are very common, feeling so overwhelmed. I've been hearing this a lot from clients lately as well. They'll tell me that, they burst into tears for no apparent reason during random times of the day for seemingly silly little things that normally wouldn't have fazed them, but now feel especially heightened and severe.